Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you. Coming at you with a tier list. This one is going to be post-Duelist Cup and also post-ban list. Now that we've seen the results of both of those things, I feel a lot more comfortable going back to the same decks that we did on the last tier list and rating them again. With one notable addition down here that I'm going to talk about towards the end of the video. We'll talk about this deck that is not in the game yet, but due to the latest ban list, we can heavily infer will be soon. So, yeah, like I said, for the most part, we're just going to be ranking the same decks we did on the last tier list, but now, again, with that knowledge in mind of the Duelist Cup and the ban list. So I'm going to start off with the elephant in the room here of Malice. So last time, I put Malice in tier 3. I foolishly believed, and I want to emphasize foolishly believed, that the ban list hits they received were going to be enough to curb them as a deck. Couldn't be further from the truth. They're still one of the best decks in the current metagame. So now we're looking at White Rabbit and Allure of Darkness are about to get limited. Do I think Malice is tier 3 now, after those get limited? No. Do I think it's tier 2? It might be the top of tier 2, but I'm actually going to keep putting Malice in tier 1 even after these upcoming limits. And here's why, right? So obviously, White Rabbit and Allure to 1 are more consistency hits for the deck, but consistency hits doesn't change how the deck combos, it doesn't change what the end boards look like. So if Malice is able to supplement more consistency tools to make up for what it's losing, the deck fundamentally won't really change at all. Now, there are some consistency tools that we've seen even within this latest Duelist Cup that they have access to. I Meet You, the Ignister searching spell card, we saw one of the top 10 Malice lists utilizing that, and that can be used to search the backup Ignister. Backup Ignister plus any hand trap is still full Malice combo, because they can normal summon the hand trap, link it for Almirage, special the Ignister, Ignister add, and then send Dormouse, and then go into Splash Mage, revive Dormouse, bada bing bada boom, you got Malice combos. So in that regard, like, think about it this way, right? The current number of Malice starters are 1 Dormouse plus 1 White Rabbit plus 1 Underground plus 1 Gold Sark, and I'll count plus 3 backup Ignister, because again, having that plus any hand trap is not that big of an ask. So that's 7 starters right there. If you add 3 copies of I Meet You, then they're up to 10, which is about where they were before, and we haven't even factored in Signet mining, which is not an optimal option because it requires a discard, but it is another consistency boosting option for the Malice deck. So you're looking at anywhere from 10 to 13 starters, right? And I think that's not really going to affect where Malice is currently standing that much. You will notice it if you're like a diehard Malice player. Of course, you will notice your deck get a little less consistent and or weaker if you're relying on some of these other consistency options. But I don't think that's enough to push Malice out of tier 1. After seeing the results of this Duelist Cup, I think that even after White Rabbit and Allure go to 1, Malice will still be a tier 1 deck. If not, it'll be at the very top of tier 2, but I'm going to put it in tier 1. Pure Draco Tale also definitely goes in tier 1. This is a deck that, a variant, I guess in particular, that a lot of people weren't really considering. Like, and I understand it, I was even the same way. It's like, well, you could either add the Branded engine or the Magus engine, do all the same stuff as Pure, and still be fine. So why would you play Pure Draco Tale? Well, I think the main reason to play Pure Draco Tale, and why Pure Draco Tale did so well in the Duelist Cup, couple of reasons. One is that you're not as weak to some of the tech or even just hand traps in general that other variants might be weak to. For example, the Magus build obviously is going to have some issues more so against cards like Maxi Fua or potentially even Droll than the non-Magus variants might. But, you know, even the branded variants can often suffer from those weaknesses, like being a little bit more susceptible to Ash on the branded fusion as well. But the big thing, I think, is that Pure, without playing these engines, is a lot more room for non-engine, whether it's more hand traps or more tech against the current meta. Either way, I think Pure Draco Tale really surprised us as being one of the more viable variants for the Duelist Cup. If you look at the Duelist Cup top 100 breakdown, it's pretty evenly split between Branded, Pure, and Magistus. So I think all those variants are going to be about on par. They just each have their own strengths and weaknesses, right? Blue Eyes I've been putting in tier 2. It might be time to put Blue Eyes in tier 3. I don't know. It's a lot weaker. And it's just getting power crept more and more. It really is the sword soul of the current meta, right? Where it's a solid deck with a solid combo line that you don't need to divert much from. It's got a game plan that's good, but it doesn't really change that much. And the fact that it doesn't change really makes it so that Blue Eyes is going to struggle to keep up with the meta. I'll keep it at the top of tier 3 for now. I don't know. I could end up putting this at the bottom of tier 2 again. We'll see, we'll see. You know what? I'm going to put it in tier 2, but towards the bottom for now. But I might change my mind later. Let's see. Centurion. That's definitely going to be a bottom of tier 3. Crystron's definitely going to be a bit down there as well. So here I have split into two different decks, Azamina and White Forest. Azamina, this is going to be that variant with, you know, reasoning and all the spell and trap cards that it's trying to mill. It doesn't play like the Synchro variant does. That is definitely going to be, I think, a decidedly rogue deck. It was pretty popular when the new Azamina stuff first came out, but it's been falling off pretty hard. White Forest is going to be in tier 2, definitely above Blue. You know, the more I think about it, I have to put Blue Eyes down here in tier 3. Because there were just some other, yeah, it's just got to stay down here, I think. Just not as impressive as some other decks. White Forest is definitely falling off a little bit in terms of popularity, but I think it's still a really solid tier 2 deck in this meta. Monarchs are going to remain a rogue deck as they have been for pretty much this whole time. So Odeon I'll put more towards the bottom of tier 2. I feel like Odeon and Blue Eyes is kind of the tier 2, tier 3 divide, right? Like, yeah, I think that's a fair statement. Like, Blue Eyes is kind of the gatekeeper of tier 3, whereas Odeon is at the bottom of the roster of tier 2. Again, I might change that around a little bit, but I think that's overall pretty fair to say. Tier Limit, I'll put a little bit below Blue Eyes in tier 3, but make no mistake, Gem Knight tier limit is still definitely a force to be reckoned with. So Archmage, I think, is still a really solid deck. I know in Genesis this deck is really good, but of course we're talking about Advanced, particularly Master Duel. I mean, it's going to be in a Rogue. I guess I'll put it above the other two decks here in Rogue, though. I think that's fair. I think I will put Stun a little bit above Archmage, though. Sorry, Archmage fans. It's not that I think Archmage is a bad deck, but I don't know. Do I think Stun is actually stronger than Archmage? It's just so... With Stun, it's such a variable, right? Because it just so depends on whether they go first or second. I'll do that for now. I think that's fair. I think that's fine. Voiceless, I'm going to keep putting in tier 3. Because I think this deck is a little bit underrated. It's definitely not like everyone's sleeping on it. It's actually the best deck of them. No, not by any means. But I don't think it's fair to call Voiceless a rogue deck. I think it's... I might even put it above the Crystron, too. Yeah, even... It's one of those decks where, like... It's kind of like Blue Eyes, where... Even though its game plan hasn't, like, changed at all, it's just such a solid game plan that it's still worth looking at in this metagame. I think it's about on par with Crystron. I think that's fair. Fiendsmith Control, I'll put in tier 3. Mostly because we really haven't seen many results from it lately. Not just from the Duelist Cup, I've even been, you know, I still keep my eye on community tournaments, and just have not been seeing as much Fiendsmith Control. I guess as the meta gets more and more powerful, it's like, at the end of the day, you really are just a hand trap deck with the Fiendsmith engine as your basis, and as the meta gets more and more powerful, it's harder and harder for the Fiendsmith engine to be a good, solid foundation. But make no mistake, it's still a very good deck, and honestly still one of my favorites to play. You know, I very recently made like multiple videos on Fiendsmith Control. Very fun, very solid deck, but I don't know if I can justify continuing to put it in tier 2, much like Blue Eyes. Alright, Onamot Riseal, I think, really surprised us all as being one of the more viable tier 1 decks in the current metagame. Even, I mean, a lot more so than Mitsurugi Riseal. You know, the thing with Onamot Riseal being able to have so many different tech options that it can do, whether it's the heavy slump, whether you're turn skipping with Ptolemies, you know, there's just a number of things that you can look at as far as like options against the meta, just by sheer virtue of rank 4s being so diverse in what they can do, right? Yeah, I think Onomot Riseal is going to maintain its position as one of the best decks in the meta going into the next meta. Alright, so Gem Knight, keep in mind this is pure Gem Knight. Pure, like, going second Gem Knight. I've been putting in tier 3, but I might just go ahead and finally drop down to Rogue. I feel like if you're going to be playing a going second OTK strategy, then Tenpai is just kind of the way to go, right? I'll even put it a little bit, like, higher up in tier 3. Now, when it comes to Fiendsmith Gem Knight, make no mistake, that is definitely still a force to be reckoned with, and I'm going to put that in tier 2, because we even saw that deck getting its own little chunk of the pie chart in the latest Duelist Cup results. I don't think it's quite tier 1. I think other decks like Malice and Draco Tale and Riseal are still notably stronger, but I'll definitely put Fiendsmith Gem Knight towards the top of tier 2, definitely giving the deck the respect it deserves. Okay, Orcust. Fiendsmith Orcust. I really like Orcust, and I think it's still really strong. But especially after the latest results, I gotta start putting it in tier 2. I think the big thing that Orcust has going against it is that it's got all of the weaknesses of the other meta decks without being quite as strong, right? It's weak to, like, Retaliating Sea, but it doesn't have the same ability to push through hand traps like Draco Tale does. You know, it's going to be weaker to the Bestials without having a lot of the ability to push through it like Malice does. It just, like I said, it has a lot of weaknesses without being quite as strong as the other current meta decks. Magistus Draco Tale, I'll put in tier 1, but I'm going to put it a little bit lower than the pure variant for the reasons we discussed earlier. Just that it makes you a little bit weaker to hand traps. Dragon Maid Draco Tale. I guess I'll put that in like tier 3. Maybe the bottom of tier 2. Mostly just because you're playing Draco Tale as your base engine. But I do think that playing Dragon Maid does make your Draco Tale deck significantly weaker than it might be otherwise. Lab. I'll put Lab in tier 3. Am I? Where am I going to put Lab and Branded? I usually put them in tier 2. But I have to admit that, like, power creep has kind of been catching up with a lot of these decks lately. I might end up putting these down in the top of tier 3. Okay, well, I do think Branded is better than Dragon Maid Draco Tale, so maybe I'll do that. That looks better. That looks fine to me. Yeah, I'll do that. Mitsurugi Orcust, I'm definitely going to put in tier 2, as I do think it's weaker than the Millennium Fiendsmith variant for sure. I think I might actually put White Forest a little bit above that variant in particular. I might even put White Forest above Orcust in general. I think they're close. I think they're about on par. I like that. I'll leave it like that. Lunalite, I will be putting in tier 2 as well. I think it's all, in all honesty, it's probably... Okay, I think we're gonna do this. I think that looks more correct to me, yeah. Okay, so Fiendsmith Mitsurugi, I'll put in tier 1 along with Pure Mitsurugi. Yeah, I think that I actually think that Fiendsmith is still a little bit better, so I'll do that, yeah. I think Mitsurugi still is deserving of a tier 1 slot, but I think that Malice actually might still just be a little bit stronger even going into the new metagame. Like, you might look at this tier list and think that it more reflects, like, the current Duelist Cup without factoring in the new ban list, but what the new ban list mostly pretty much hit is just Malice, and I don't think Malice is really that much weaker for it. Sky Striker, I think, remains a very, very solid tier 2 deck. I'll even do that. Mitsurugi Riseal, I'll put in tier 1. Actually, Onomot Riseal, I think I'm going to do it like that. And then Mitsurugi Riseal is going to go like here. There we go. This is Branded Draco Tale, which will definitely be towards the top of tier 1 for sure. Okay, let's address the sweet treat in the room. Yummy. So, at the time that I'm recording this, we have not, which is December 27th, by the way, we have not had any official word that Yummy is going to be coming into Master Duel. But if we look at the latest ban list, we can definitely infer it, based on the fact that they banned Obedient Schooled and limited Sky Striker, Mecha Hornet Drones, and Herald of the Arclight, which look really random, you know, but when you put them all together, definitely adds up to the fact that Yummy is coming to Master Duel. And y'all, Yummy is such a strong deck. I think it is definitely going to be the best deck going into the new format. Granted, it won't be quite as good against Draco Tale as it might have been otherwise, considering Herald of the Arclight was a pretty important inboard piece. I mean, it's not like it's banned, it's still at 1, but being able to use that against Draco Tale is really, really good. So, that said, I think Yummy is still definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with. And even with these pre-hits, I think will be the best deck of the metagame whenever it ends up coming out. But yeah, Yummy coming in the future, that is. You know, we're looking at all of these other lists here, and I like their positions. Yeah, definitely let me know what you think in the comments below, though, of these decks' positions on the current tier list here. But for the time being, that is going to go ahead and do it. Thank you so very much for watching. As always, super appreciate you. That is going to do it, though. So let's move on to our outro and thank our YouTube members and Patreon subscribers. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which, by the way, is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.